So the tools that we want to be using whenever we work with this exercise with our horse, we want to have them on a good length of lead. This lead's about 12 feet long. I probably wouldn't want to use anything shorter than an 8-foot lead for this exercise. In addition, for when we're working with the hind feet, I want a bit of a longer rope so that I can stay at a safe distance. This is the same type of rope as the lead, and it's about 20 feet long. You can, in a pinch, you could use something like a lasso rope, but generally, because the diameter is so small, you run a risk of burning up your horse's legs, injuring them. So you want to try to not use that if you can, but in a pinch, if you've got nothing else and you really need something, that could potentially do. Also, I try to avoid the flat lunge lines for exactly the same reason, because the edges are thin and they could cut your horse if your horse was seriously struggling. Another tool that we want to mention that you're going to want to have is a good pair of gloves, just in case the horse gets to kicking around, pulling around with their leg. You don't want to end up with a burn from the rope from that. So to start with, we want to do a bit of desensitizing of our horse's legs. So I'm just going to take the lead rope and make sure that we can toss the rope around the horse's legs, front and back, wrapping around as we go. If your horse has difficulty handling this, you want to definitely take the time to get them okay with it before you move on. That's a safety precaution. Indy's pretty okay about this idea, so I don't think we have to do too much. We work with the hind feet the same way, making sure that the horse is going to be okay with the rope around the hind legs. So once you can swing the rope around your horse's legs, you're going to want to fish the rope around and catch their legs, kind of making a little bit of a loop here. Now we'd start out with a little desensitizing this way also, rubbing up and down, kind of wiggling, getting your horse okay with that. There are some horses that you have to spend more time than others with that. Indy's okay with this idea. From there, I'm going to add a little tension at her knee. Not pulling hard, just adding a little tension until she shifts her weight off of that leg. The idea to handling your horse's feet and getting them used to these things is not necessarily the handling of the leg itself, it's the getting them used to carrying their weight on the other 3 legs and getting them prepared to pick that foot up. So I put a little pressure here and you see her sort of wiggling her leg, and so I'll release with that. When I put the pressure here, if she softens the leg, I'm going to soften. There we see her shifting her weight, getting more ready to lift that leg. We'd take as much time as we need to in order to help this happen. Some horses, if they're really resistant, you might kind of rock a little back and forth. She's pretty sensitive with her legs, so she doesn't really need that. But again, that's something some horses might need you to do. Once they're lifting their leg from the pressure behind their knee, I'm going to let the rope slide down over her ankle, and I'm going to do exactly the same thing, putting just a little pressure on that rope, and then if that's not getting a response, I'll sort of rub soft back and forth, again helping her just to get ready to lift that foot by taking the weight off that foot, positioning it onto the other 3 feet. And a girl. Now your horse might take a little longer to get this understood, or your horse might be picking it up automatically. So once you've got your horse prepared and lifting their leg off the pressure of the rope, then it's time to take that leg somewhere. So I'm going to ask her to lift her leg off the pressure of the rope, and when she lifts it up, I'm going to carry it forward. We see how she puts her weight down into that leg, and I'm going to wait for her to step up just like that. We'll do this again, asking her to lift that leg, and when she lifts it, I'll carry it forward. Maybe this time off to the side. I'm not pulling, I'm just holding a tension on the rope so that as she softens her leg and releases, I can set that leg forward and out to the side. Essentially teaching her to lead by the leg. She's doing a great job of stepping up into that foot, into that pressure. Again, your horse is at home. You might have to wait for a while when you lift that leg, when you place it out to the side. It may take them a while. She's not really resisting into this idea. We've worked quite a few horses that will resist, that will want to take the leg back. And when they do that, we simply ask again. We don't get too worried about them doing that. Every opportunity, or every moment that they do it wrong is just another opportunity to help them figure it out again. So again, going to lift that leg forward. You see right there, the rope just slid up behind her knee. I don't get too worried about that. She's going to have to learn how to yield to it there anyway. So again, going to hold it just at a slight angle. I don't want to pull out too far on that rope, on that leg, because then we'd have a chance of, you know, tweaking her leg there, maybe soaring up her shoulder. We don't need to do that. The idea is we're just helping her to learn how to yield to the pressure on her legs. We'd make sure that we got that balanced with both front legs before we move to the hind feet. So for the hind feet, that's when I'm using this length of rope, and this rope's got a handy ring tied into the end of it. I'm going to use that so that when I release the pressure, the rope slides a little bit, kind of loosens up off of her leg. Now again, we did our homework and we got our horse desensitized to the idea of the rope around the legs. Now I simply pull that rope through, and I'm going to thread my rope through the loop. This gives us plenty of rope to work with in the event that our horse gets bothered and upset. So we sort of wiggle it, fish it down around her ankle there, around her pastern. And from here, it's going to be the same idea. Going to put a little bit of pressure on there until she starts to lift her leg. Now, if we've got a horse that's less sensitive than she is, we might need to rub that rope back and forth like we talked about on the front legs. She's pretty sensitive, so that's not an issue. Again, I ask her just to get ready. So you'll notice as soon as she takes the weight out of that foot, I'm softening my hand, I'm softening on the lead rope, helping her to understand that lifting that leg is the right thing. Taking the weight off of that foot is the right thing to do. Now, I don't expect her to hold it up there for an hour. I'd be pretty happy if she just softened her leg and started resting her toe on the ground instead of the whole flat hoof. I'm going to move this out of the way. So just like we did with the front leg, once she's pretty handy with shifting the weight off of that leg and readily lifts it for us, I'm going to start to carry that leg forward. We see how she offers a little bit of resistance there. Some horses offer more than others. The idea is that we hang in there until she follows the feel of this rope forward underneath herself, just like that. When she does that, you can see her shifting her weight into that leg, so I soften my lead rope. I'll ask here again, and just as we did with the front leg, I want her to end up following this hind leg with her other feet. We allow her the time to think about that and to figure it out. You see her start to shift her weight slightly into that foot as she sets it down. I'm going to ask again here for her to lift it up, and this time I'm going to try to set it down a little bit closer to myself. I don't get worried about the kicking. That's a pretty natural reaction there. A lot of horses, when they're standing for the farrier. A lot of them get to throwing their legs around like this. Your farrier would sure be happy if you would teach this horse how to lead by the legs. Then he wouldn't get, or she wouldn't be getting pulled around nearly as much. Again, there, when that leg starts to set down where I've asked it to, then I'm going to just release the pressure and pet on her for a moment. Once the horse is sufficiently following the feel of the rope off of their hind legs, I like to ask them to lead out around me on a circle. As they're walking around, once they're relaxed, I'll put a feel on that rope and try to lead that leg towards myself. Again, their natural reaction, their natural response the first time, or maybe the first 100 times, depending on your horse, is going to be to kick out. It's really important that we can keep a soft arm in this case, so that they're not jamming on our joints. We don't want to lock our shoulder and lock our elbow. We've got to have some give and take in there. Otherwise, we could end up getting ourselves pretty beat up. So we simply wait until the horse relaxes the leg. And then we carry that leg forward. There. Once they set the leg down, we want to wait for them to step the rest of the body up into the leg, just like she did in that case right there. It's a pretty simple exercise that will certainly save your farrier a lot of trouble, save your back and your joints a lot of trouble for a horse that's not wrestling around with their feet. Your farrier will definitely thank you for taking the time to get your horse used to leading by the legs this way. This is also a great preparation if you're thinking about teaching your horse to hobble. Teaching them to lead off the pressure of their legs should be the first prerequisite to teaching them to hobble. Once they can yield to that pressure, pretty much put the hobbles on. Once your horses can yield to the pressure of leading around from their legs, generally they're much softer and easier to handle for the farrier, to handle any kind of work with their legs. Again, you want to take the time, as much time as necessary, to get your horse good with this exercise, and this is suitable for horses of any age.